Go ahead.
Welcome to Look Around Florida. Sean will be up next.
Hey guys, welcome to Look Around Florida. I'm glad you can be here today. I'm your host, Sean McFall, aka the Florida Man, and I have other nicknames. On this cast, I cannot say them. Hey Ryan, good to see you, buddy. Let me get this out of the way. The views and opinions here are ours. This way keeps me and my guest out of the doghouse because none of us like getting phone calls from our chain of command. So this keeps us out of the doghouse. Kim, Keith from Camp 1209 in the house. Glad to see both of you. Hope you're not at work and doing this on your cell phone. All right, we got quite a bit of events coming up for the I almost said Lee Jackson for Confederate Memorial Month. We have quite a bit of events. Hey Linda, how you doing tonight? Good to see you. So I'll talk about the events. I'll talk about what we did here in the Southwest region this past Friday. This last Friday, you guys are probably wondering about my hat. So let me get some of these events out of the way. Nice, Keith. Hope they're clean. Just don't call me late for dinner. Just want to remind everybody, June 1st is our division reunion. The SCV and the OCR will be meeting June 1st in Trenton this year. Get your registrations in. If you need the registration work on the OCR, please check out the Florida Society of the OCR Facebook page or their website to get your registration form for that. If you're going to the SCV reunion, please get your registration in. It's on the Florida Division website. Please get your stuff in. This way, I do know for a fact, per our division commander, he does have a special gift for us again this year. What it is, I have no clue. Hopefully, I can get our division commander and our division adjutant on next month because division reunion coming up. This was just sent to me this weekend. United Daughters of the Confederacy, Grange, Chapter 2234, and the General John C. Breckinridge, 1786, Sons of Confederate Veteran. Cordially invites you to a Confederate Memorial Day service at 11 a.m. on April 27th. Stewart Chapel Cemetery, State Road 471, South Webster in Webster, Florida. A potluck picnic will follow at the home of Joyce White in Bushnell. Please bring your own chair for the ceremony. Joyce White, president of the Grangeville, I'm going to butcher it. I know it. Okay. Reggie, commander of the General John C. Breckinridge. Please, RSVP, get a hold of Joyce White, or you can go, or you can email them, let them know that you're coming. Now, this one, Paul Norris is putting on this event. White Springs Flag Site fundraiser, Saturday, May 18th, 2024 at 11 a.m. Hamburgers, hot dogs served with cowboy beans and a drink. Located in White Springs, Florida, just off of I-75. Exit 439 onto State Road 136 east behind the Farmers Market. $10 a plate. All SCV, mechanized cavalry, and guests are welcome. Hosted by the Captain Woodson Stephen Camp and the Olusty Camp. Commander Paul Norris and Commander Robert Tucker. Please get a hold of them if you're coming. It's going to be a great event. I got to get back in touch with Paul Norris to get him to come on the show. To get him on the show to talk about this event in May. The Confederate History Month Memorial Service Saturday, April the 20th at 10:30 a.m. Service ceremony 3 in Quincy, Florida. Now the guys up here in Quincy, they're good people, hardworking people. Please go support them. Confederate Memorial Day service, Mount Peace Cemetery, St. Cloud, Florida, Saturday, April 27th, 2024, 10 a.m. It is being sponsored by the Jacob Summerlin Camp, 1560, the Sons of Confederate Veterans. If you do go, tell them Sean with Look Around Florida says hi. So we got a couple more people in the chat. We got Jeffro Cotton. No, he is not picking cotton tonight. We got Beth Benfield. So let me talk to you about Florida Wild. It's a multimillionaire bought this ranch in Mayaca, Florida. Transformed his ranch to a lot of early Florida setting. It's a movie that's coming out sometime next year. Right now it's in editing. And is supposed to portray the cattle business here in South Florida. So with that, there's a small part of it where the guy's having a flashback talking about it's either his dad or his grandfather, something like that. I don't want to ruin the whole movie or anything, but the Southwest Florida region Sons of Confederate Veterans came together this past Friday to do a part in Florida Wild. Please check that movie out when it comes out in theaters sometime next year. Me and Ronnie Nichols, Jeffro Cotton, and various others. After we did our scene, we messed around in town. You probably saw me and Ronnie Nichols behind bars goofing around because we wanted to see the set. So it looks interesting. Anxious to see when the movie comes out how everything we saw ties in together. So Florida Wild, check it out. They're on Facebook and they have a website called Florida Wild. Please check it out. With all that good stuff going on, I know, like I said, it's Confederate Heritage Month, and a lot of you are doing a lot of good work out there checking on Confederates in your area, flying, cleaning headstones, all that wonderful stuff. Keep it up, guys. Don't forget to send pictures and a story with your pictures in so I can get them on the next Look Around Florida, which will be Tuesday. So please get them in so we can talk about events and upcoming events. With all that, please welcome our next guest. He's a candidate for the Army of Tennessee Councilman, Roy Hudson. Hey, Roy, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you, sir?
Not bad, not bad. It's been a busy, chaotic month, but we wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be in the SCV OCR and doing all that good stuff if we didn't love it.
Amen.
So I know you're running for councilman. What got you thinking about running for councilman for Army of Tennessee?
Well, I like a lot of us, for many years, for probably 30 years, I was a camp member, camp officer. I've held probably every office there is in camps at the local level. And I was pretty much intent on staying local or maybe doing something within the division, which I'm also doing now. And I retired this coming June to be 3 years ago. And at that point, I just sat down and said, I have to be focused. I have to be doing something. And I was going to say, if God gave me my health and the wherewithal, I was going to spend the rest of my life dedicated to the SCV, doing as much as I could for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Last year, I had a couple of people in the SCV who I highly respect came to me and said, we really think you ought to consider about running for national office. We need help at the national level. And I had never even considered it before. I've never run a political campaign or anything before, but so I took it under consideration. I prayed pretty hard about it. I talked to my wife about it, and finally decided, okay, I was going to take the big step and go for it. And since last July, I've been running hard trying to accomplish that mission.
Cool. Thank you for your time. With being hypothetically councilman, what kind of are some of your goals you want to achieve?
Well, some of my goals are goals that other folks also are going to have. The basic, my goal as the councilman for me is to make sure that the information and concerns of the members of the Army of Tennessee make it to that table in Tennessee. That's where we need to be heard at. What I've heard a lot of places around the country is they feel at the camp level that what they think nationally doesn't matter, and it should, because we are a ground up organization. The camps are our strength. So my first job is to make sure that the voices of our compatriots are heard. The second job is to make sure the business of the SCV runs effectively. And I think my experience and background have prepared me pretty well for that. As far as once I'm there, what do I think we need to concentrate on? One, museum debt's got to go away. Whether we think we like the museum, we don't like the museum, it's ours. It's the best hope for the future. We have done a remarkable job in the last year paying the debt down. We're down to 1.1 million, which is a whole lot less than it was, double that a year ago. So we have to get that off so we can free up that $13,000 a month for programs that will help us recruit, retain, and get our message out. So that has to be paid off, and to get the Forest Plaza stood up again. We have a lot of good things going on right now. This 21st Century Confederate Hero Program, I think it's a great idea, and if they can get it to work, if we can get the people to contribute, that program alone would bring in enough to take care of both of those, the museum debt and the Forest Plaza. That's pretty amazing. I've already talked to my camp, and unfortunately, I won't be at my next camp meeting. I'll be at the Tennessee Division reunion, but it's going to be brought up to the camp meeting for a vote to see if our camp was to get one of those 21st Century Confederate Hero slots for the camp. The other thing that I think is really important, and we have to be smart enough to realize it, because a lot of us are not really on top of our game when it comes to computers and so forth, and with communication and stuff like you guys are doing, you do, and like chat does and stuff is really great for getting out communications. I'd like to see the SCV come up with a communications committee so they can explore all the new avenues that are out there with other ways to approach people for membership. Our membership has been decreasing the last couple of years substantially, and COVID took out a lot of members, and age has taken out members, and we need to replenish ourselves membership wise, and we need to work hard on keeping the people that we have. So I truly believe that those have to be priorities, and sometimes we need people that have a better technical understanding on what's currently out there in the technology field. And there's a lot of people that know a whole lot more about it than I do, and that's why we need to bring in folks that are young and aggressive and that are schooled in this stuff so they can lead us down the right path. But communications is a secret to all leadership. I taught leadership in 48 states. Our around the country at all type of agencies and so forth. And the biggest thing in leadership has always been communication. You know, I always return phone calls. I always return emails. I never don't do that because you've got to be able to communicate somebody if they're going to represent you. Well, getting our word out has to be done by communication. And if we can get the museum debt paid off, again, that money, you know, the advertising we did in the Epic Times, that was phenomenal. It brought in people that have never even heard of us before. You may have heard the stories that Commander Boshier shared about people coming into the museum. I think it was one couple that lived 5 miles away from Elm Springs, never heard of us, never heard of the facility. They saw it times, they came in and they spent a good portion of the day there. There's another couple he told me about. I think they came from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Saw it in Epic Times, and it was a husband and wife and some kids. And what they went out spending like 5 hours at the museum, they'd never heard. You know, they said, "Where did you get this information?" And he's like, "Well, the Library of Congress." And they were taking shots of QR codes, and they spent hours in the museum. And all that because the word about who we are and what we have got out on a national level, and that's what we need to shoot for.
Cool. Like so like more advertisement, not only in the Epic Times, but Civil War magazines. I know that's a dirty word, but that's the name of the magazine.
Well, yes, and it's funny because some of the magazines that have been around for years have gone away. But the way I found out about the SCV was I was reading the Civil War Times.
Yeah.
And there was an article written, and the guy signed off that he was a commander of the John Quincy Marr camp in, I think, Petersburg, Virginia. I looked his name up. I got an address. I wrote him a letter because we weren't on computers those days.
Yeah.
And that's how I found out about the SCV, was reading about it in the Civil War Times. So absolutely.
So that's good. I mean, it recruited you, and
it did.
Just imagine what our opportunities are out there for not just the national organization, but the different divisions within the AOT.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to benefit all of us, and that's what we have to look at things. Sometimes we get focused on what's happening in our camp, and our camps are very important, but there's a bigger picture from our division to nationally. And if we can free up the money that we have to expend every month on our mortgage, basically, that is going to loosen up the pocketbooks to allow people to do a lot of things. And we have a lot of good ideas, and we have a lot of people that are very smart and know how to would take that money and turn it into national advertisements, national programs. You know, and this has been said before, but cotton picking, when there's a problem that develops concerning a Confederate monument or memorial or something, they don't talk to us, and they should. We are the descendants of those people. They should be talking to our commander in chief.
Yeah.
And one of these days, if we get enough publicity behind us and people actually know who we are, and the politicians start to listen to what we can do and the things that we support, perhaps it'll be Fox News calling up commander in chief and saying, we need someone to comment on this, because that's the only people that are going to get, we're the only ones who are going to give us a fair shake.
Right.
So.
Now I've heard this quite a bit throughout the Confederation. If you do get, I know you're putting a lot of time and effort, money and that for running. Once you get, if you do get, councilman, are you still willing to travel, meet with other camps and other divisions?
I'm absolutely, I've taken a counsel. I've talked a lot to people I respect. I respect Jimmy Hill for the job he's done over the years. I respect Jason Boshier. I've talked to him. I've talked to Mr. Kennedy. I've talked to quite a few people. And Jason and Jimmy have both held councilman job. And what they've both told me to do is, if you're going to represent people, they have to know you when you walk in the front door. They have to know who you are. And so since last July, I've put over 50,000 miles on my vehicle. I have driven to meetings in 7 states at this point, getting ready to go some more here in the next 2 months. and expend it my own money because no one pays you to do this. So if I wasn't serious, I would have never done this. If I didn't love this organization, I would never put this much time and effort into something that is a volunteer position for a volunteer job with no salary or benefits. So it's you got to do it because you love it. And if you're going to, I've always been the type of guy, if I want to do something, I'm going in whole hog. I'm going to make sure I'm there to do it right and work as hard as I can. So, I'm trying to earn people's respect. I'm trying to let them know that, hey, I'm standing up here in front of you right now. This is who I am. If you need me, here's my phone number. Here's my email address. I'll do anything I can to help you. And I do want to be your representative. And in July, I guess we'll find out. And if I'm successful, then I'll thank God for the effort paying off. If I'm not, I'll thank God and I'll go over and congratulate my opponent and wish him the best.
Yep.
We're Southern gentlemen. That's what we should do.
Exactly. Now, I know, everybody's running for a position keeps talking about recruitment and retention.
Yep.
What kind of ideas do you have on that?
Well, first of all, there are some camps that do a phenomenal job of recruiting. If you look at 1209 here in Florida, there are county fairs, and they are all over the place. I think, again, if you can loosen up money, I know I've talked to my camp. There's a program that's coming out through the Confederate Legion with radio ads, and they will match funds for radio ads. And I've talked to my camp about going to the Brevard County, a couple of the radio stations in Brevard County, getting quotes on what it's going to cost. And I've talked to Ron Kennedy about the Confederate Legion helping to finance this. And so we're in the middle of doing that right now. But radio ads, billboards, in-person stuff, county fairs. I don't know if I caught this on Facebook today, but Vic Smith up in North Florida, he's at the high school that he went to 19 years ago doing a class on the Hunley, talking to kids.
Wow.
And talking about the Hunley. I mean, that's great. We have in my camp, we have a guy who is hooked in with the homeschooling network in Brevard County. And so far, our camp has been to 3 education days for homeschoolers, letting them see the weapons, letting them try on. We got a bunch of old kind of uniforms. So the kids dress up in the uniforms, and they like to touch and feel and ask questions. So we're getting homeschool age kids interested early. And I think as a organization nationally, we ought to take a look at the camps that are doing things really good and copy what they're doing, and maybe put together a training program for members of camps that want to attend, or commanders or whatever. Say, hey, listen, this is what works nationally, and go over the programs and how to get them done and give them contacts. So I think there's a lot of good stuff out there. Some people do it great. Some people don't put the effort in they need to. And that's recruitment, and of course the retention thing. And I've always said this in retaining members: if a member comes to a camp meeting or 2 or 3 and they're not inspired, they're not coming back. Whether they come to get a certificate and go home, or whether they just come and they say, it's not my cup of tea, or I'm bored. But if you go to a camp meeting and you leave there and you've listened to a really good program, or you've got some great information, or you get fired up, or the commander says, hey, I realize you're new. Tell me what you'll like to do. And you find out, okay, is this person going to be good for the honor guard? Is this person going to be good for cemetery cleanups, headstone cleanings? Is this person have an interest in one day being a camp officer? Is there a place in your organization this person can feel useful? And, one thing that our camp did, we had a fellow come in, and he's a really good guy and so forth. And I don't think he was there 2 months. And, we do a little door prize drawings and stuff like that at every meeting. We asked him, would he be in charge of that, just to get him, involved. And he's done a great job, and he's taken it on. And, and I think one day he'll be a camp officer. But you got to get them early, and you got to find out what they're interested in and use them. Because if they come, like I said, they come to 2 or 3 meetings, they're not happy, they're not coming back. And that's just the sad truth of it. And if they don't come back, if somebody doesn't call them and at least show that we're interested, they're definitely not going to come back. We have made phone calls and got a couple of members back by making phone calls to people who didn't renew, by actually calling them and saying, listen, we really miss you. You know, we would like you to stay in the camp and talk to them. And some people have been receptive. Some people tell you, hey, go fly a kite. I'm done. I'm not going to do it anymore. Well, God bless them. And they're off their way. But you got to work at retention. It just sending out a dues reminder doesn't get it done.
Right. And I think somebody said it, one of the guests said it, having a good program at your camp meeting.
Oh, and I'm, well, me, I do programs. I'm a big believer in that. Matter of fact, one of the reasons I'm in the camp I'm in now is because I wasn't getting that somewhere else, and start going to this camp meeting. And every month there's a historical program. And I'm all about learning. I mean, the day you stop learning, you may as well stay home.
Oh, yeah.
And there's not one of these programs I don't walk away from learning something brand new. We get, because our members come from such different backgrounds, we get all kind of really cool stories. We get stories from, the operation in the Western Theater, which, most of us don't know a lot about. We just had a program done on the Confederate States Marine Corps. Most guys haven't heard anything about the Marine Corps. I as much reading as I've done, and I'm a readaholic. I didn't really know nothing about the Confederate States Marine Corps, and it was really an interesting story about how that developed and so forth. Even though the modern day Marine Corps doesn't claim it, they don't talk about the history of the Confederate States Marine Corps. There was one, and about a third of the Marine Corps for the U.S. Marine Corps left the U.S. Marine Corps and went to their home states to become Confederate Marines. And so there's a lot of stuff you can learn that you don't know. And if your area of interest is the Army of Northern Virginia, well, you may not know a whole lot about Trans-Mississippi or something. So there's always good stuff out there. I mean, I was just at a program up in Memphis. There's an author they had up there who had just written a book, and he was doing a program on the Mississippi Rifles, which was actually a company that Jeff Davis was the officer in charge of, fought in Mexico. And he had all kind of stuff about Jeff Davis as a military officer, not as the president. Thought it was really cool. So there's good stuff out there, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the great thing about our organization. Everybody's different. Everybody's expecting different things, Some want to sit there, read history, talk about history. Other people want to live it through reenactments.
Absolutely.
Other people still want to protect and preserve not only monuments, but cemeteries as well.
Well, it's all part of the charge. And that's what's great. We're all different people, so we all like different stuff. And we have to find something that makes us passionate. I know our camp commander currently, Mark Thornton, he loves doing the parades. I mean, he just thinks that is the best thing in the universe. And they're some people like to do those, some people not so much, but we all have something different. I've become a big fan of our Confederate Memorial Day services and going in ahead of time and cleaning the headstones and all that kind of stuff. I think it's important. I think as a person with Confederate ancestry, it's important that you honor your ancestors. I know I've seen you at cemeteries where you have your ancestors. I'm getting ready next month to go put a Confederate Cross of Honor on one of my great-grandfather's graves on the family farm. Wanted to get that done before the good Lord takes me, so at least somebody will know that he served. Because right now the headstone doesn't mention anything about a service. It says Papa on it. So,
yeah. I mean, for me, I have not visited any of my Confederate ancestors' graves. Me and Ronnie Nichols are planning on doing that the week of National Reunion. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Didn't you publish a picture of a headstone or something, though, didn't you, of your ancestor?
That's a monument that stands in front of our church.
Okay.
With my ancestor's name on it.
Yeah, okay, that was it.
Yep.
So, but we all have things like that, and that's part of who we are. And a lot of times in our own families, you might be the only one in your family that's really into doing this. So if you're lucky, maybe there's more. But there's always one usually that will try to carry the torch. I've got one nephew who, out of the rest of the family, who has an interest in family history and family lineage, and I'm hoping that to keep the fire in him. And at this point, I don't know whether any of his kids or his son at this point has any interest, but his son's, I think, 18 now or something. So
Mhm.
we all have to try to keep this thing alive. And you know, there's a lot of programs the SCV has that we have to work hard. I know you and I were talking off air about the chaplain down in Miami area
Yeah.
in BK, and you know, trying to revive our cadet program. I mean, that to me is so important, to getting the kids involved. You know, Moose, as you know, Harrison, he was a cadet, and I've talked to him about that. I said, you know, it's really important that we try to get these programs pumped up again, to get these kids going, get them to the Sam Davis youth camps,
Yep.
get them to safe where they're going to learn a little bit about their history and to be proud of their history, because we have a generation or two of Southern children who are ashamed of being Southern because of what's been forced down their throat. We got to change that.
Yeah.
We ought to be very proud of who we are and who we descend from.
Exactly. Uh, I had a question right on the top of my head, and
Well, you can think about it, and I'm going to take a drink of water.
yeah, that's all right, Roy.
Mhm.
Well, anybody, if you have questions for Roy, please type them in the chat. Uh, I'll put them on the show so Roy can read them. Don't be shy on asking Roy questions. If he was, he wouldn't be on this show.
I'm on there because Sean asked me.
Oh, uh, here, here's here, here's one question. Hopefully, you can answer it.
Okay.
What's the relationship like between the SCV and the mechanized cavalry?
Well, I think like any other thing, the mechanized cavalry is subservient to the SCV. You have to be a member of the SCV to be in the mechanized cavalry. I think 96% of the mechanized cavalry guys are loyal, hardworking SCV members. They do a lot. I mean, if you remember at last year's reunion, who stepped up and with a $16,000 check toward the museum? It was the mechanized cavalry.
Mm-hmm.
So I think our relationship is good. There's always going to be a problem or two here and there with people, and sometimes people join for the wrong reasons. And we've seen a couple of cases like that where people have come in and it's all about being in the mechanized cavalry. And you know, I think, you know, as you know, here in Florida, we don't have that issue because, you know, David King, who's our captain in the mechanized cavalry, if anyone comes to join, he'll tell them first thing he asks is, what camp you belong to? How long you been there? And he'll call their camp commander and find out if they're active members and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not, he'll tell them, start going to your camp meetings and call me back in 6 months to make sure that they're going to be good active SCV members first. But I think all in all, the mechanized cavalry does a lot of very good things for our organization.
Yes, they do. Oh, a question did come up, Roy. This is from cousin Victor.
Well, Victor, I see the question, and I wish I had a magic potion for that. What I have found out, and it's not a magic secret, is that it takes a personal relationship. Now, my camp has not been able to get out of a Hunley ward for a couple of years now. They've been shut down by all the ROTC programs. The young man that we just had join our camp, he is a 10-year Navy corpsman, served in combat with the Marine Corps, squared away guy, a really good guy. And he's so involved with the VFW, the ROTC programs and stuff. We're getting ready to, this coming year, to give away our first Hunleys in 2 or 3 years now, you know. So it's been quite a while. It's been at least, you know, I'm being told 5 years, but it's been several years since we've been able to give any. And all it takes is the wrong person. I heard a story of we've been given a Hunley Award to a certain ROTC program for a long time. They got a new person in charge of the program, and they said, SCV? You're you're uninvited. Don't come around. Don't. So a lot of this, you have to be able to pry open the door, and sometimes it's a personality issue where they're just not going to let you in. Like I said, we've been out for several years, and we're finally getting back in this year because of one guy who is well respected in that community.
Wow. Maybe we can get him on and give some of these camps in our division some ideas on how to get in.
Well, he's new. We don't want to scare him off, but I will talk to him about that because
Well,
he's a
exactly.
go-getter.
Exactly. I don't want to scare anybody off, but
Right.
you know, I'm open-minded. I like ideas.
I do too. And Vic, I appreciate the question. That's a really good question because, it depends on what part of Florida you're in and who's running those programs. If it's somebody who's not Southern, you have a less chance of it working, and some of them come in and, of course, we've already been painted with a certain brush. So it's like, okay, that battle flag is part of who you are. You're not coming near our school. And it's sad to say, but it's the truth.
But now, you were talking about your personal experiences. I know what they are. Some people may not. How would your personal experiences, what you did for a living for X amount of years, how will that help you to be councilman?
Well, that's very easy. I mean, I spent 49 years in law enforcement. I held every job from the lowest rank to, captain, major, chief, director. I've done all that. I've managed several hundred people in a $55 million budget. So I've got people skills as far as being able to help people work through difficulties. I've had to have that to be successful in my career. I've got, I know, I was a high school kid like a lot of us and came from a family nobody had ever been to college and nobody was expected to go to college. So I went in the Army straight out of high school and came out, and a year and a half later or so, got involved in law enforcement. And when I was in my early 40s, I had a boss who I really respected, best guy I ever worked for, called me in the office and said, "Sergeant," says, "you're a good guy, you're smart, you get a lot of stuff done, your men will follow you through fire." He says, "and the sad part is you're going to retire as a sergeant." And I kind of sat back. He said, "You need to go to school and get your college education." I says, "Boss, I ain't been to school 25 years. He says, "You need to do that." So I went back to school in my 40s and got a bachelor's degree in public administration. So I know how to organize stuff. I know how to run stuff. And I know how to work with people. And those are the skills you need to do. And I have a business sense since I operated basically, any law enforcement agency is a business in the sense is you have a budget and you have to live within that budget and make things work. So I know how all that works. And I think that's a good quality to bring to the table because the SCV, as much as we love the organization, and I hate to call it a business, we are a business in the fact that we are a multi-million-dollar organization with a large property and a lot of responsibilities. And you need some people that have that sense sitting around that table.
Correct. Now, touch back on what you said earlier about Joe Blow. He just joined the SCV, been in it, say, 2 years, and he has some concerns. He follows his chain of command, and it gets to you, possible as councilman. Will you be able to take his concerns up to the GEC or?
Well, it depends on what it is, Sean. If it's something that has gone through the chain of command and run its course, then certainly my job as councilman is to bring it to where it needs to go. And again, that's one of the biggest things I've talked about is communication. My job is to be a conduit from the camps to that table in Elm Springs. And I want people to know that if they have a concern or they have an issue they think needs addressing, that I can take it there and get it addressed. Now, will it always be the answer somebody wants? No, but you have to know that somebody's in your corner is going to go up there and at least put it on the table and get it looked at. And I'm not afraid to do that. I'm not going to sit down and not bring up stuff that is important to members of the Army, because that's what I'm there for.
Mm-hmm. Now, as councilman, you have this podcast, you have David Pope's, Michael Hardy's,
Mm-hmm.
and you have SCV
Chat.
Chat. Uh, and I know you talked about doing something at the national level.
Mm-hmm.
Promoting all of us, or uh, more of the national having a
Well, I think what I talked about, Sean, was a communications committee to get people who are in the field, who know stuff, who can advise us on what we should be paying attention to,
yeah.
whether it would be Snapchat or Facebook. What is the most effective way for to get our message out? I may not be the one that knows that, but I should be able to rely on people that have that working knowledge that to point us in the right direction. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, is people to do that. And again, it's communication stuff. You're doing this in Florida, and this is a great deal. And the chat boys have that going on, but it's kind of evolved into a national thing. And there's a lot of states that have no programs, and it takes the right people. I know Texas has got something going on and things like that, but we need to try to encourage all of our divisions, if they will, to kind of support a program like you have, because it keeps that information flowing. The biggest thing that causes discontent is the people feeling that they don't know what's going on in the organization. And it's the councilman's job, it's the Army commander's job, it's everybody in the change job to make sure that information flows back down. And I think I said this when Harrison interviewed me, that one of the things that I would do in my position, besides trying to keep the newsletter going that Jimmy Hill has had going, is to try to get on, every couple of months, get on your show or get on chat, or one of those, to say, hey, give me 10 or 15 minutes to talk about the AOT and what's going on, just so people can hear it firsthand. Mm-hmm. And besides that, and another thing that I want to see us do, I don't know how many people in the chat have been to an Army of Tennessee training, but they are phenomenal. They are good, and I would like to see more than one a year. And I know I've talked to other people that are running for office, and they have the same vision, that they want more than one training a year. I think it's important that we move those trainings around, so everybody doesn't have to drive 800 miles to get to one. And depending on where you live, living where you live, it's a pretty good drive to Tennessee. Living where I live, it's a pretty good drive. But if we held one in Jacksonville or St. Augustine or Pensacola or South Georgia or Alabama, somewhere, you can vary the distance up if you move them around a little bit. And I think that's important, that we get those trainings out there so more and more people are informed of what's going on in the organization and how we are addressing issues.
Well, that answers my next question about moving the AOT training around the AOT, not being in one area.
Yeah, well, last year I went to the AOT training in Foley, Alabama, and this year it's going to be at Elm Springs. So they do move it around, but I can't tell you where the AOT trainings have been the years before that and what different states. But we do need to move it around and maybe have more than one a year, so that way we can get it out to more folks.
Yep. Carl, welcome to the chat tonight, sir.
Hey, Carl.
This question did come up from Kim. Are you able to see it, Roy?
Yeah, I'm reading it now. Each one. Oh, Kim, that's a good question. Every organization that I have belonged to always wants money, because that's how they run. And I will say this, I've put the SCV at the top of my life as far as organizations go, and I donate when I can and where I can. I'm not wealthy. I've sat at the table and watched guys pull out a checkbook and write $1,000 or $2,000 checks. I can't do that, but I can do stuff long term. And so, I agree that basically say do what you can when you can. If something is particularly important to you, if you want to see that Forest Plaza go up and you got $20 or $50 or $30, then send a check in for that. If you want to try to see the museum deck go down, then the same thing. Write one to that. I know that everybody wants a little bit of money. I know right now in Florida, we're trying to raise a little bit of money for that soldier statue that we're trying to put back up there in Jacksonville. So there's a lot of need, and money talks. And there are people that have the wherewithal to do it. And I said this a long time ago, and I don't know the inner workings, but I know that we have members that are well heeled, that are that some that have a lot of money, and some of them have done a lot of stuff for us. But as far as the average guy saying, to some guys they can write a check for $1,000 or $200, and it's not a big deal. To other guys, that extra $15 a year might be an issue. So if you can't do it, you can't. You give of yourself in different ways. You give of yourself by volunteering and doing different things. If you can't afford to do it financially, I think my wife and I stepped up and decided that our estate, when we go, is going to go to the National Confederate Museum, simply because that's how strongly we believe in it. I don't have a bunch of money to give now, but when we go away, if there's anything left, they've got it. So we all have to do what we can do.
Well, I hate to interrupt you, but I literally just got a message from our division adjutant. He did want to say the annual camp reports have been emailed to the camp commanders. Please complete them as soon as possible and return them to the division adjutant, as they are needed to complete the division report for headquarters prior to June 1st. If you have any questions, please call or email our division adjutant. Sorry about that, Roy.
Not a problem. Rick's the guy, and he does a phenomenal job. And if he needs the stuff in, it needs to get in.
Yep. Hey, Jack, how you been, buddy? Hopefully Roy was able to help you out the other night, Jack.
We have friends.
Now, right now we're in trying to think how to say it. Treacherous waters right now with anything Confederate, right? What's some of your ideas to combat that?
Again, Sean, it's a matter of what several generations have been taught. The way to combat it is to, one, get involved in our educational systems, be able to get the invites like Victor just got, stuff like that, to get in and talk to people. One is the national advertisement. Let people learn who we are. Let them get to the museum and look at that timeline. Also, there's an untapped resource that we have, and that's the Friends of the SCV program. A lot of people just don't have the lineage to join the SCV, but there are people that are friendly to our cause. And I think we ought to be pushing the membership for the Friends a little harder than we do sometimes, because anybody can be a friend, and I know a couple of us in my camp, our spouses have joined as friends just to help support the SCV. So I think I think Mr. Kennedy, I'll steal his word, said it was an untapped resource, and I believe it is. And we should really be pushing that, because there are people out there who believe like us and just don't have the lineage. And I think that's another program that we overlook sometimes, because we're so hard wanting to get members of the SCV, and that we kind of overlook how useful somebody can be. That's a friend. So I think that's another thing we could do.
I do have a question on the Friends of the SCV.
Okay.
Now, I know as being a camp adjutant, we're able to see our members, our full members.
Right.
What about having something where we're able to see Friends of the SCV to keep them on to keep them on track?
Now, I don't know what comes to the adjutant from National, but I can tell you that our adjutant, Steve Smith, has the Friends listed right on our roster. And we can look at it any time and know we have them. We know when their dues are paid.
Now, is that on the national roster, or do you at the camp level keep something separate?
Well, we have something separate, but the national, what happens with the Friends, their dues aren't due when the members' dues are due. They're due, like if they join in February, they're due the next February. So
Correct.
they get a notice from National that their dues are due.
So they do get a notification.
Yes.
Okay.
They do.
It just, because I've sat down, go through my camp reports, especially right now, getting ready to do our report for division.
Right.
I'm on there. I can see my member list, but I can't see friends of the SCV that we submitted under our camp without having a program, meaning on the national website.
Well, the only thing I can suggest to you, Sean, is get a hold of Eric Pravetti
Oh, yeah.
and see what he says. But or you can call my adjutant, Steve Smith, because he prints us probably twice a year a membership list, and
Yeah.
our friends are right on it. So
Okay. That's good to know.
yeah.
Exactly, Kim. All I'm trying to do is be able to keep them on track with everybody. Make sure they get the information they need, the magazine, all that stuff. Because
They don't really.
some people, like Roy said, the best thing that we can do is communicate. Let our members and our friends know what we're doing, what we're about. All right. All right. Man, time flies when you're having fun, Roy.
It does. Been a heck of a party, Sean.
I know. Be a heck of a party here in another month.
Yeah. Looks like I got a pretty good sunburn on my motorcycle ride today.
Wow. Did you stay right around, or did you go for a ride for a while?
About 160 miles today.
Wow.
Left out of my place and went out west to Okeechobee and up 441 to Holopaw, and then back down from Holopaw the back way and around. So.
Oh, okay. Did you get any of our brothers with the mechanized cavalry to go out for a ride with you?
Well, actually, it was me and a friend of mine ride, but he's a mechanized cavalry guy too. So
cool.
Member of my camp.
All right. Before we wrap this up, does anybody have any questions for Roy? Feel free to ask, because next month we're going to be focusing on division. Here's one from Tommy.
Tommy, I believe there's something. If I had the date of Stone Mountain, there's something going on at the same time that I'm already committed to, but I sure wish I was. That's something that's big on my list to get done. But there's an event somewhere else. This time of year, as you know, there's about a dozen things every weekend, and I've committed to something else. But no, I won't be there this year, Tommy. So I'll miss you.
Well, I want to say, Roy, thank you for coming on and taking the time out of your busy schedule. Oh, thanks, Keith. Taking time out in your busy schedule to come on the show tonight to talk about your platform, talk about your platform and ideas that you got that you can relate to as being a candidate right now for Army of Tennessee councilman.
Well, Sean, I appreciate the invitation, and I appreciate all the folks that tuned in tonight. And I would ask for their support. If they support me, I really appreciate it. And if they don't, well, God bless them. And either way, I'm still here to do what I do for the SCV.
Alrighty, Roy. Thank you for tonight. Next Tuesday, it's just going to be a chat night. I had it up here. Yeah, Tuesday the 30th, we will have George Connor Bond on. He's also a candidate for councilman. So think of some questions, guys, that you want to ask him. So that way, come July, you're making the best decision in your camp, for your camp and for the membership. Roy, brother, thank you for coming on tonight. Tell Linda I said hi. Tell her to stay out of trouble.
Okay, Sean. Good night, buddy.
All right, have a good night, Roy.
Good night.
All right, I hope you guys appreciate Roy Hudson taking time out today to coming on the show. Just want to say, guys, stay Southern, stay out of trouble. Let the Lord guide you and bless you with all your ventures tonight. We're going to end the show with one of the faces of the SCV. Stay young. Have a good night.
When my mother was in college, she danced with Confederate veterans. To me, it wasn't that far away. My father knew this. My mother knew this. Almost 50 years ago, I joined the Sons of Confederate Veterans. In those days, we weren't concerned about saving monuments or any of those things. That wasn't necessary. In fact, none of us had any remote idea that it would ever come up, or we would have done something then. We can't just sit there and react. We have to be proactive.
The Sons of Confederate Veterans is the direct heir of the United Confederate Veterans and the oldest hereditary organization for male descendants of Confederate soldiers. Organized at Richmond, Virginia in 1896, the SCV continues to serve as a historical, patriotic, and non-political organization dedicated to ensuring that a true history of the 1861 to 1865 period is preserved. Membership in the SCV is open to all male descendants of any veteran who served honorably in the Confederate Armed Forces.
It is my birthright. My ancestors fought and bled and died. Because of their sacrifice, it gives me not only the eligibility to join, but it's my duty to join the organization. Their blood flows through my veins. Their struggles and triumphs are what made my family what it was, and in a sense made me who I am today. We're to defend the Confederate soldier's good name, that he fought for a noble cause, that he fought for his home, his wife, his children, and his descendants. We're to guard his history, which to me, it's the monuments, it's the headstones, as well as the actual written history of what happened during that war.
The citizen soldiers who fought for the Confederacy personified the best qualities of America. The preservation of liberty and freedom was the motivating factor in the South's decision to fight the Second American Revolution. The tenacity with which the Confederate soldiers fought underscored their belief in the rights guaranteed by the Constitution. These attributes are the underpinning of our democratic society and represent the foundation on which this nation was built. Today, the Sons of Confederate Veterans is preserving the history and legacy of these heroes, so future generations can understand the motives that gave life to the Southern cause.
We need to draw the line in the sand right now. These are our Confederate monuments. These are our Southern heroes, and you're not going to take them down. Right now, if we do not protect our heritage and present it as it truly was, it's going to be lost forever.
The memory and reputation of the Confederate soldier, as well as the motives for his suffering and sacrifice, are being purposely distorted in an attempt to alter history. And unless the descendants of Southern soldiers resist those efforts, a unique part of our nation's cultural heritage will cease to exist.
My commitment to the SCV is a commitment to our heritage, our cause. Not in a violent way, nor an aggressive way. Simply in the way we live. Live what you believe. But in your defense, know in what you're defending and defend it truthfully.
If you were interested in perpetuating the ideals that motivated your Confederate ancestor, the SCV needs you. Simply visit www.scv.org today. Our genealogists are ready to help you trace your Confederate heritage.
We're not just some history club. We are a fraternal organization who is essentially the last guardians whose duty it is to defend American and Southern history.
Have a good night, everybody. Stay young, stay out of trouble.